right off the bat, we have something that's cool and old. This is the Dazey Rocket Ice Crusher.
That's in nice shape.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go.
Hello everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad. If you've seen some of my recent YouTube videos, you've probably seen me dealing with things that were on Antiques Roadshow and all this wonderful stuff and think, boy, he really is connected. But wonderful stuff all comes from somewhere, and we are preparing an estate sale, and one of the things that's a rarity in Florida are attics. But this attic has a bunch of stuff in it. And so I wanted to show you the not so glamorous side of what we do. We are here in an attic. It's kind of getting warm outside, so I wanted to do this early, and we're going to just take a look and see what's in this pile behind real quickly and see if we can find any stuff. I've got someone holding the camera for me today, and I will take it from there. So let's see what's in box number one. Okay. Oh, well, right off the bat, we have something that's cool and old. This is the Dazey Rocket Ice Crusher.
That's in nice shape.
Yeah, it really is in good shape. This is 1950s, 60s design, and Dazey is the one that made all those old butter churns. Hopefully you can see all this, but then it's got the grinder in here, and you go one way for fine and one way for coarse, and it's pretty easy. You just turn the handle. So that's a cool thing to see. Not everything in an estate or in an attic especially is going to be vintage or antique, but we're going to just take a look here and see what might be. I don't know who S was, but this is quite a heavy bookend with a planter in it, so that looks like it's 40s or 50s. And oh my, yes, well, here's something that is a little bit retro, I guess.
It's hard to see.
It's hard to see, yeah. Well, it's a box of Viagra, but we think it's probably done. So yeah, we've got to pull all this stuff out of here and set it up in the main house. So that's what we're working on today. Oh, let's see what's in box number 2. Oh, looks like we've got a pile of hubcaps, and you know, old hubcaps at estate sales actually do all right, because some of these sell pretty well online, especially when you get anything with spokes. This is off of an old Oldsmobile, and of course they were the company that had the rocket logo, and they're not around anymore. So, you know, some of these can be worth $20 or $25 a piece. Some of them are not going to be as much. This looks like it's from an old Ford Taurus or something, and it's kind of beaten up a little bit. It looks like we've got a set of those, though. So, well, that's good. Okay, so we got to drag those out of here. Let's see what's behind me. Oh, what am I knocking into here? Oh, a guitar. Huh. The paper that said what kind of a guitar it is does not show anymore, but the people in this house were very musical. More musical than that sounds, I'm sure. So, we will put that down in the music room that we're working on. Oh, a bunch of linen and fabric and lots of old luggage. There's always a ton of old luggage in attics, but we hope there's some better stuff too. People wrap things in plastic, and you know, plastic just doesn't always hold up when it gets hot like this, so that's going to be kind of a mess. Looks like a bunch of dolls, mostly 1980s and 90s, but the ones that I think might have collectible value are the Spice Girls, because that's been a while now, and now that's starting to be that generation that are collecting their old toys. So who do we have here? Oh yeah, we've got Melanie and Mel B. Those were two of my favorites, actually. I always like them, all of them except for Posh. Can't do Posh. Anyhow, that'll be interesting. We'll have to look into those and see if there's a collector value to them. A little wooden boat with a critter in it. Okay. So I'm imagining that we might have a lot more in the doll realm in here.
You also might want to bring everything in the back up here. Just this lighting
This light
really,
is good. Okay, we'll
this is
try
the
to
best
hold it
spot.
where you can see it here, folks, because it is a little bit, you know, we're just kind of winging this and seeing what's in here, so. Okay, my question for you is, what is that guy doing wrong? Well, I am in a place that has evidence of rodents, evidence of bugs. Fortunately, no one's lived in the house for a few years, so we didn't see anything alive, and that's a mercy. But really, most folks, you really should probably be wearing gloves. I just hate the way they feel, and so I just wash my hands a lot after I get through a place like this. But gloves are recommended. I could be wearing a mask. I didn't see any reason to in this particular place, but you know, some old houses, this one, I'm in the addition that was built in the 1980s, but if you get into a house built before the mid-70s, there's a good chance there's asbestos in the insulation. There's all sorts of things you probably should be really careful breathing around a place like this. So masks and gloves are actually a good idea. That's just another mirror, lots of mirrors, a lot of newer stuff. But then it looks like there's a big train set in here, so this is kind of cool. The Timber Wolf. This looks like something you set up under the Christmas tree, but it also looks like it might have some age. Here's an old engine from the Rio Grande. So we're finding some toys in here, and that's always good. Toys usually do well at estate sales. And even though these are only about 30 years old, well, you know, that's old enough for a generation to have grown up with them and then lost track of them. So that could be a good thing. The Sequoia. Yeah, there's a couple of, oh, there's a big old caboose in here. Intermountain Express, that's right, PIE. So, yeah, this is great. Well, this will be fun for, with Christmas coming up. That's good timing for those. Let's see what else we've got in here. Oh, boy. Okay, here's an example of what happens in Florida when you leave a piece of plastic in a hot room. It has turned brown. This is woodstock, and we all know woodstock's supposed to be yellow, so I guess that one probably isn't going to make it. This box has old decanters, and it looks like just old kind of Jim Beam style whiskey bottles. We see those a lot in the States. They don't sell for a lot. There's only a few that are desirable. The Space Needle from the Seattle World's Fair sells for some money and stuff like that. But this says that it's Banks. And it looks like we've got, oh yeah, one of these money counter machines. But this is a nice vintage one here. I like looking for the vintage because that's my personal interest. The First National Bank of Freehold, and this would have been a money sorter, and it's got its original key in it. That's got to be from the 60s. So somebody will like that. And then this one, well, we know this one's worth something because, look, it's full. So that's nice to find. It's always nice to find something where it's already converted into money when you start. So we did find money in the house. About $50 or $60 in this particular house, but that does happen. I have found $6,000 behind a picture in a house, a floor safe that had gold and silver bars, purses where every purse in one house, and they had 400 of them, had a $2 bill in it for luck. Definitely big on ferreting out money and vintage items and cool stuff we think we can sell at a sale, and that's what today is about. So that is a nice little box to have. Let's see what's back here. Oh wow, whole bunch of little stuff. Here's a Mercedes emblem. That's going to be kind of neat. More little perpetual calendars. This is actually kind of a fun box we're going to have to go through here. Just a bunch of little toys and games. Most of this is just $2 or $3 stuff, but there are a couple of interesting things. This is an old cane handle made of brass. These folks really like to keep everything in bags, which is actually going to be kind of convenient for us to go through, so that is a good thing. And this house was redone in the 80s, and these are, you couldn't find anything more 80s than these. These are Anchor Hocking, and they did these in 3 different sizes and just about every color under the rainbow, and they're all just fired on color, so that's why you see it's kind of fading at the bottom. But we are starting to see this style coming back into style. I am seeing collectors for these sorts of things. So if you're seeing them out there in the wild and they're in good shape, you might actually be able to, if you're a reseller, you might actually be able to make some money on those. Let's see here. This one is keychains. Wow, tons of keychains. And an old Tampa Bay Buccaneers patch. Old school, actually.
That's
I haven't
cool.
seen
Yeah,
that one
that is.
before. Yeah, that is kind of cool, isn't it? And just about every keychain you could imagine. So these folks did keep a lot of stuff. I believe the wife was an educator, and so a lot went with her to school, I'm sure, as little prizes and things. Oh, now here's an older decanter, the hobo with the spigot. This is going to be from the 1970s, and that's actually something that I have a feeling there might be a collector for. I sell that kind of novelty stuff all the time in my stores. And chalkware plaque. These sort of neoclassical plaques were definitely an 80s thing, so we'll get that out of here. Boy, we're going to have a lot to drag out of this place, aren't we?
Yeah.
This looks like definitely the 1980s, wouldn't you say? Okay, what else do we have here? That looks like a bunch of party supplies. Oh, here's something in the realm of toys that I remember from being a kid. And that is a Light Bright. And Light Bright seemed like a really fun toy, and I think parents loved it because by the time you put all those little pegs in, you had been quiet for 2 hours, and then you never played it again. At least that's how I remember it, because it took forever and ever, and it was like, this would be really cool if we ever got it finished. I don't think most kids have the patience for that. Let's see back here what we've got. Ooh, we are getting way back towards the end here. Oh, a bunch of stuff from 9/11. Now, I should hold this up because we always, when we go through estates, if they were alive when JFK was assassinated, we find a bunch of JFK stuff. If they were alive when this happened, we find a bunch of stuff related to this. It's not valuable because everybody and their brother saved it. So, you know, it's out there, and I get calls a lot. Oh, I have all these old newspapers from the moon landing and that sort of thing. And for the most part, unless it's the city it happened in, they're not worth very much. Now, this is cool. This is a travel bar. This is back when it was considered correct and proper to bring booze with you everywhere you went. We sort of take a different view of that nowadays, but these old travel bars actually do sell well. They're a fun novelty from about 1970. Every sophisticated gentleman had to have one, and so that will sell. That's kind of a neat thing to find. And then, oh, typewriters. The blue, which is an electric, but even the early electrics are starting to sell now. It's amazing to me because we used to literally use these as doorstops in front of the antique mall because nobody wanted them, and now, well, now they're collectible. And oh, here's another one, an old Smith Corona. Nice and heavy too, aren't they? Oh, well, yeah, you saw the other one, you get the idea. It's a little awkward in here to get things open. Here's an old fishing pole. This one is a metal fishing pole. These were done around the Second World War. It's not in good shape, but we'll have to see if it's a good brand. It actually, when I say it's not in good shape, it's because the handle, the cork needs replacement, but the rest of it is intact. So, old bamboo fishing rods are what we really hope to find. I don't expect to find any in this house. It's not really the right era. That's a bunch of kitchen stuff. Oh, this is kind of cool. Whenever I see this kind of metal, I like that because it's from the 60s and 70s, and this is definitely, I would say, late 60s, and just kind of a neat decorative item. And for you folks, by the way, who are collectors, as well as for you resellers, lots of hand washing. We're supposed to do that anyway this time of the season with what's going on, but especially under the circumstances because you don't know what else has been living up here with this. And if you shop at thrift stores, carefully wash the stuff when you get home. Do not assume that they did that for you. It could have come from a place like this, So you don't want to make any assumptions about that. Better safe than sorry. And let's see if we're almost to the back. A bunch of little plush animals. Okay, more dolls. More party supplies. So I think we've made it to the back of this little pile of stuff. So now we have the fun of pulling it out of here and cleaning it up and getting it displayed. But I wanted to just show you a little bit of what it's like to do the dig before an estate sale. This is the reality of what it looks like. Not as glamorous as you might think, but it is a lot of fun. And look at all the cool stuff we found. So anyway, this is George the Antique Nomad, and I will come back in a couple of days and we'll show you another facet of setting up for this estate sale. You'll get to see what we found, and boy, there's going to be a lot for resellers. So if you are in the market for stuff to sell, we have got it. It's George the Antique Nomad. I'm very glad to have you with me. I wanted to show you some of the progress we've been making. I think this is the 4th time I've come from this house. This house is pretty crazy. This house is an example of what happens when a place is hoarded, but we're starting to tame the hoard, and I want to show you some of the stuff that we're finding. We got this out of a box. It's never been out of the box that it was shipped in. It's a really lovely painting of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, Impressionist, and it's just really neat to find things like this in a box, because we've certainly been finding lots of other things in boxes that are, well, maybe not quite as special. So but we spent, my cousin came and helped me yesterday, and we spent, oh gosh, an entire afternoon going through the attics of this old house. Now, Florida houses don't often have attics, but this one does. One of the things we found is this neat looking old guitar with the painting on, and the way the fretwork is done and the screen painting. I think that we're probably going to be looking at 1930s or 40s on this, and its maker name used to be in the bottom, but it's gone. Usually when you look in the sound hole, you'll see the maker names on old guitars, but I suspect it's the silver tone. I don't think it was an expensive guitar, but it's cool looking. And, you know, a lot of what people are buying is for the look. Not everybody is buying to play. Let's see, these big lamps just came out of the attic. I think we added some of the pictures were up in the attic. It's amazing where people will put things away and then just sort of forget they have them. So while I'm thinking of it, please comment in the space below here, and also hit the thumbs up button to like this video. If you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button below. Also, hit the bell below to be notified of new videos coming every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And thank you so much for following along. Let's go back to this video. Since we're on the music theme, I'm going to take you back here first. If you saw the video the other day, this room was an absolute mess. The guy's desk, papers everywhere, piles in the corner. So this guy is also a musician. I could have fun in this room too. It takes me back to when I played bass guitar and sang in another band. He's got the big old PV amps for the stage, and we decided to make this the party room because we found in the attic, one of these travel bars from the 1960s, back when you'd put your bottles of hooch in it, and it's the Portable Pub by London Air. There's another one, Sing For Us, ha. Well, I haven't sung in years, and you know, if you don't use it, you do lose it. I don't have nearly the range I used to have. But what I do have is some familiarity with speakers and sound stuff, and what's really great is that some of these are pretty valuable. The kicker here, I believe that originally this subwoofer was several hundred. I think they still sell for about 100. Are those handles horn or plastic? In this case, they are plastic fantastic because they are out of the late 60s, early 70s, and plastic was better than real materials. This DBX, the noise reduction system, and the Yamaha analog delay model there, those are pretty good. Those are probably worth 100 a piece. There's a sound mixing board. But we found some other cool old stuff that we decided to put in here. We have a practically mint rotary phone. It's funny because I was just showing in my YouTube video all these phones, and there is the black classic 1960s rotary phone in perfect working order. He had a disco ball. He also has this really cool 1940s globe that lights from the inside. We found an old camera, so there's a lot of the kind of usual stuff. There's Johnny Depp smoking a cigarette and playing piano. I don't know if that was a movie or if he does that and I just wasn't aware. But then we found this. This came out of an old doctor's office. This is an L.C. Smith and Corona typewriter. Smith and Corona merged shortly after they built the Smith Tower in Seattle, which was the tallest building west of the Mississippi for many years. It was 40 stories, actually 42 stories in 1914. And they did it because they were making lots of money with these typewriters and decided they needed a Western distributor branch, even though they were out of New York. The old typewriters are worth money now. So are the steel drums. This is kind of a cool thing. And here's a little steel drum. I just love the sound of these, and of course being in Florida right now, this is where you hear a lot of playing. And then there's a bunch of other equipment. He's got speakers galore, he's got keyboards galore. He's got these cool things out of the 70s and 80s, the Lindbergh bottle of the human skeleton, the human skull, the human tooth. So he's got a lot of interesting stuff. There is stuff everywhere in this house. There are some albums here, and I wanted to note these two because these are not bands many people have heard of, Tough Darts and the Dictators, but these are late punk, early new wave bands, and these are both promotional copies. And some of these bands from the early 80s are selling for pretty big money because they didn't produce a lot and then they were gone. As opposed to Mitch Miller and Chad and Jeremy, who were very prolific, and we see a ton of their stuff. Then we got a pair of bongo drums, so there are at least some fun things that are of vintage interest here. If you're a reseller and you haven't discovered an estate sale yet, you don't know what you're missing. It is so much easier to find stuff to resell in a huge house where they're selling everything that has been in the house. Particularly if you're a generalist reseller and you're not just looking for one particular thing, an estate sale is a really efficient way to use your time. You're going to see a lot more than you would see at just somebody's garage sale. It's usually going to be priced to sell. You're going to be able to make money. A lot of times I see prices in thrift stores that are as much or more than we're selling things for at the estate sale, and the thrift store is getting what's donated after we get done with the sale. So why not cut out the middleman and go directly to the estate sale? If you're a reseller, it really is worth your while. Now this room in front of me looks a little more like every room in the house did when we started. This is what a hoarder house looks like. These are actually somewhat sorted now. I don't know if there's a market for my first Sony, but that is something that might be collectible. But this pile here is a big stamp collection in a whole bunch of boxes. So we'll be getting that out and trying to distribute it and figure out how to show that off. And then down here, some barber stuff, some stethoscopes, this barbicide disinfectant bottle I thought was cool. And then there's the sphygmomanometer, I believe is what that's called. I hope I got that right. It's the blood pressure cuff in that metal box there. And people like all that old stuff. So one is the fur and one is sheepskin. There's some Judaica in the house. I like the Shalom clock, but I especially like the electric menorah, which is from the late 60s or early 70s. They have various pieces of Israeli brass. I am finding that there's a market for these now. You know, they're almost 50 years old, a lot of them. Some of them have really neat color. This is a pair of bookends. I'm going to show you another piece in a minute here. We dug in a couple of other boxes and found a bunch more Russian porcelain. Look at this great thing out of the 70s. That is so flower power. I just think that's cute as can be. And a nice little ice bucket here. Lots of stuff new in the original boxes. It's kind of crazy how they really bought a lot of stuff and then just never used it. And there's not a lot of old prints, but there's this nice one from Gordon Grant, yes, in 1927. And this was basically to represent the USS Ironside, which went on a big tour around the country after it was rebuilt. And then this vase here, you know, these 1980s vases like this, especially if they're by Treasurecraft or Hager, I'm starting to see customers for these. So the 80s are coming back, folks, whether you like it or not. Now, this is the room that yesterday, if you saw it, had boxes piled up almost as tall as me in here, and we spent the whole day getting it together. This is one of those Paymaster units. This just came out of the box right before the crew went home, as well as a bunch of these bean bottles. Now, bean bottles are a tough sell. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't too excited to find these. But I do think the shell is nice. And they were made by a good company. They were made by Regal China in the Chicago area, and they were well done. It's just that they were made to be instantly collectible, so everybody bought them. And the reason they did it is, frankly, beam is not very good. And since it didn't taste good, they thought they'd make up for it by giving you a fancy bottle that you would keep. Well, instant collectibles don't ever go up in value because everybody and their brother buys them and then hangs on to them forever. This one's at least kind of nice looking. You see this one a lot of times in thrift stores without the labels on it, and it is the Grecian pattern. These I thought were cute. These are Howe's Art trays out of Pennsylvania. Those are kind of collectible. And let's see. Oh, you know what? I passed by something in the other room I should show. So they had kids in the late 80s and early 90s, and so we see things from that era. Well, this is the era that kids are wanting their childhood back. So this full house collection, which needs a little bit of cleaning because it was sitting in an attic for 20 years, the value on this is somewhere around $25 to $30 now. There's Mary Kate and Ashley. Yeah, this will be a fun estate sale. Got a Snoopy nightlight from the 70s. So there are some fun things that are vintage here. It is a real estate sale, and it is a hoarder house. They just had a very hard time letting go of things, and some strange things have come as a result. This is a neat old Emerson hi-fi radio. One thing with hoarders is that in addition to not really being able to let go of things, they imagine that things are very, 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 very valuable, because that's part of the why we can't let go of it, because you can't possibly pay me enough to let go of it. And so I found some things in wrappers with garage sale prices that were just incredibly astronomical. This little robot guy out of the 80s is very cute too. We've got some old Red Cross first aid kit. Yes, believe it or not, we will have it ready by hook or by crook. I've got a big crew coming in to help me the next couple of days to get the rest out in price. People who have been looking at these videos, I'm getting lots of comments. How in the world are you going to get this done in time? How did you manage to get this off the ground? Well, I have a really great crew. I worked with 5 people on this sale. One of them has an estate sale business of her own, Estate Sales by Susan, in the north part of Pinellas County. I was lucky she had the weekend off. She was able to help me. She's just great. She knows everything to do. I've got a gal who's an antique dealer. I've got a guy who's been a collector most of his life, and I've got a gal who works in a thrift store as a volunteer and is really great with display and merchandising. So it's important to have a bunch of people who can really help you. It took 300 hours of labor to get this done, and literally half of my profit went to payroll, because that's just what it takes when you're dealing with a hoard. We took 100 bags of trash and recycling out of this house over the course of a 10-day period. I've had a few people say, oh, well, I've seen hoards and they look a lot worse than that. Well, it's true. We did not show you all of the garbage and all of the things that had to go away before we could even start the estate sale. But trust me, there were plenty. But we got it done. We got it done on time, and, well, we'll show you the results in the next video. We can move a lot of stuff in a quick hurry. These are a bunch of minerals, and, you know, minerals are certainly old. They qualify as vintage, and some of them are pretty valuable. Nicely, they actually put some marks on them, so I'll have a better idea what they are, because I only have very basic knowledge of these things, but some of these are really pretty and they've been polished down. We're going to get a big folding table in here tomorrow, and we'll be able to go through the rest of it and kind of find what's there. Let's see one more here. Oh, well, that one's not as impressive looking, but it's serpentine. It's got a nice shiny surface anyway. And there's a lot of silver plate. We really haven't found much silver or coin silver. These look auspicious. We're going to open them tomorrow. These came out of the attic right near the end, these suitcases here, and say they have old this and that, old ceramics and old jars and a collection of this and that, so we'll see. But I like this guy. This is definitely Eastern European, and doesn't he have a great face? And this is a nutcracker. There we go. Chomp. I also wanted to point out they do have some political memorabilia. They have a sheet of buttons here. So you've got Goldwater and Nixon and all sorts of folks from the 1960s primarily. And, oh, some old office stuff again. Here's this neat little thing that held the rubber stamps. We're seeing people buying these now because there's all these people doing scrapbooking, and it is actually handy to have something to hold your rubber stamps, especially if there's certain ones you use all the time. Rescued from a sanctuary of the old Pasadena Presbyterian Church, which was built in the 1920s and torn down and replaced in 1980. So they took some of the wood and they made crosses, and I think people who went to the church donated a little money and got a cross. Well, when I found this in this house, they had had a garage sale, and they had it in a bag saying how rare it was, and they had a price of $200 on this. So when you go to an estate sale or a garage sale and you think, where are they coming up with these prices? Bear in mind, sometimes you're dealing with people who may be amateurs, but you may also be dealing with people who really don't want to let go of their stuff. This is a really cool Sailfish, a nice mount. That in a retail store is probably $400 or $450. Camaro out of the 1960s, the Schwinn bike out of the 70s. You know, they're fun things, and there's an old one for the medical evaluation group from the Army. So we're going to find things in here for certain. I'm sure there's still more to find, and I'll tell you why I know that, because I'm going to show you one more, just so you get an idea of how this place really started. Oh, but first, let's look at something pretty, because this next thing we're going to show you is, well, less than pretty. I'm going to show you in the garage really quickly because this is our last really big mess to tackle. And you can see here what I'm talking about. This is how a lot of this house looked when we started a week ago. And so we have really worked hard because look at this pile. It's just piles of stuff on stuff on stuff. Now there is something neat hanging up in the rafters, and that is this bike. This is a folding bike, and this one is actually from Russia. It's a little dark for you to be able to see, but it is a Russian folding bike, and I think that's kind of a neat thing because, you know, folding bikes are actually pretty good sellers anyway, and then you have the fact that it's from Russia. Fortunately, we got the 1989 Lincoln out in the driveway. It's for sale too, and so we were able to put up shelves. So we're getting started, but boy, do we have a lot of work to do and 3 days to finish it. So I guess I probably ought to get back to work, but I want to turn the camera around here and say goodbye to you. But first, actually, just for fun, let's show you this in case you haven't tuned in before. This is right out of the 80s, and talk about 80s kitsch. It is a coffee table, and it is a seal. And if we take this camera away, you'll see that he is a seal balancing a ball on his nose. How's that for fun? The 80s have their own special kind of kitsch, just like every decade. You know, the 70s brought us these groovy lamps, and the 80s brought us tables with seals. So I think that every decade has something interesting. It is all kinds of awesome, isn't it? I agree. I mean, I think this is going to be a fun sale. I'll try not to put my hand over the camera too much. I will also try to find... There's the camera. I haven't done this by phone for a long time. But anyhow, it's really great to have you all here. Thank you so much for coming and spending a little time with me this evening. And I am going to take a dinner break, and then I think I'm going to dig through for another hour. So I will very much enjoy showing you the next phase of this. The next phase hopefully will be the house being all set up. You should see the upstairs. It looks like a boutique. I mean, it's amazing what the gals did up there today. So I will show you more soon, and thank you so much for joining me, and have a good evening. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.